Good morning, children. Welcome to the English session. Today, we shall deal with a poem, A Photograph by Shirley Toulson. The poet remembers her mother who died about 12 years ago. There is a photograph taken when her mother had gone for a sea holiday with her cousins and her uncle. Looking at the photograph, she experiences the great loss of her mother. The poem basically talks about how death can silence you and leave you speechless. The poem. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she the big girl, some 12 years or so. In the introductory lines, the poet looks at the photograph of her mother, which was taken when her mother was 12 years old. She had gone for a sea holiday with her cousins, Betty and Dolly. Each of the cousins was holding the hands of the poet's mother, who was the eldest among them. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their transient feet. All the three of them stood smiling through their hair. While they were paddling, her uncle took a photograph of them. Her mother had a sweet face. All these happened before she was born. The waves washed their feet as it stood still. They all underwent changes while the sea stood still. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday was her past. Mine is her laughter. Both wry with the labored ease of loss. Years fled past since then. Her mother grew up into an adult. She would look at the photograph, laughing nostalgically and remembering the past. She would appreciate the dress worn by her cousins Betty and Dolly. The sea holiday belonged to the past of her mother, and the poet still remembers how her mother would laugh looking at the snapshot. Now she had been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived, and of this circumstance there's nothing to say at all. It's silence, silences. But now, as destined by fate, the mother has been dead for the past few years. Out of all these circumstances, there is nothing else left to say. The matter is closed and silence has sealed its fate. The gist of this poem. The poem describes three stages in the passage of time. In the first stage, the photograph shows the poet's mother standing at the beach enjoying her holiday with her two girl cousins. She was around 12 years old at that time. The second stage takes us 20 or 30 years later. The mother would laugh at the way she and her cousins were dressed up for the beach holiday. In the third stage, the poet remembers the dead mother with a heavy heart. The photograph revives a nostalgic feeling in the poet. Thus, the three stanzas of the poem depict three different stages of life, that is, early adolescence, girlhood, adulthood, and death. Now, let's analyze the literary devices used in the poem. Literary devices or poetic devices are tools that a poet uses to create rhythm, enhance a poem, or intensify a mood or feel. The poem is written in free verse, so there is no particular rhyme scheme. The first literary device used is allusion. Allusion is a reference of something. Here, the example of allusion is the cardboard, which refers to the photograph. The second one is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of the first consonant sound. The alliteration used in the poem are stood still. Here the s sound is repeated. Through there, the th sound is repeated. My mother's m sound is repeated. Terribly transient, t sound is repeated. Silence, silences, s sound is repeated. The next literary device used is oxymoron. Oxymoron is the joining of two opposite words together. The example for oxymoron used is labored ease. Labored is hard work, and ease is a work done without any difficulty. So here the two opposites are joined together. So it becomes an example for oxymoron. The next one is transferred epithet. Transferred epithet is when an adjective usually used to describe one thing is transferred to another. Like, an epithet is a word or phrase which describes the main quality of someone or something. So, transferred epithet is when this adjective is transferred to a different noun. Like, for example, happy birthday. Here, the birthday is not happy. In fact, the person is happy. Here, so the adjective happy is being transferred to the noun birthday. Similarly, the example used in the poem is transient feat. It refers to human feet, but it is used to describe the lack of permanence of human life. So the adjective of life is transferred to another noun, feet. The next one is personification. Personification is giving human attributes to non living things. The next one is personification. Personification is giving human attributes to non living things. Here, silence silences is an example of personification. Here, the situation silence is given human attribute. The last one is synecdoche. Synecdoche is a part of something that represents the whole. Here, the example used is feet, transient feet. The feet is a part of a body which represents the whole human life. Thus, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you and have a nice day.